revenue is less important. The quality of the customer is much more important. The quality of the first 10 customers, and make sure you can learn from it and they can validate or change your original concept is far more important than reaching 10. In the end of the day, what makes the difference is your tenacity and the trust in what you believe in is right. That will make you successful.
In today's episode, my guest is Michael Heiberg. Michael is the CEO and founder of Ocean.io. Ocean is an account-based data platform that harnesses AI to help sales and marketing teams. Before starting Ocean, Michael started off his career in sales at SAP, worked at Oracle, i2, and helped companies to grow via the incubator the Zimma. So he's seen the inside of big corporations and many startups before starting his own. So love to dive in. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you, Joran. I love to be here.
Nice. To get to know you, Ocean, and set the scene a bit, let's start off with some quick fire questions. When did you start at Ocean?
2017. We did some research early on in 16, but incorporated the company in 17.
And are you bootstrap funded?
Yeah, the first years was pretty much bootstrap. There had some angel investors in. Institutional investors didn't come in until 2019, 20. So the first couple of years were really bootstrapping.
Yeah, you experienced both sides.
And then pre-seed in 19 and seed in 20, 21.
So 2 rounds in total?
2 rounds in total, yes.
And how much funding did you raise?
Quite a bit. If we include what we have put in ourselves and all kinds of things, we are north of 10 million.
Gotcha.
It's an AI tool. It costs money to build data models, very large scale data models.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that. Currently, how many employees do you guys have?
We're not that many here. I think we 30, 29, 30. I think we just offer an offer letter for number 30 is just going out. Okay.
Congrats. In one sentence, what does Ocean do?
We allow you to target in on your ICP by using AI to clearly define your ICP and map that out in the market as clearly target audience. And we do mean ICPs.
Yeah, that's going to be really important.
Yeah.
If we go to the personal side, have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Because you worked first at bigger corporations, then in startups.
It's actually a funny story. When you work in large corporations, I had no idea how to be an entrepreneur. It was always you get your pay slip. You work in this large corporation. Going out on your own is not really on your vision. But then gradually, I started to move into the US startup environment, and there you got the flavor of it. And once it's in your veins, it's there. So I could never imagine going back like 20 years. I couldn't imagine going back to corporate life. I couldn't imagine that.
Interesting. And you took 2 funding routes. So you took the VC route. Do you already have an end goal defined for Ocean, or is that something undefined?
We have come to a market with a complete redefinition of data. We have built a ground-up AI engine, which had its first release in 2019. And when you do that kind of work and you build it ground up, we have 59 million companies worldwide with an AI marker on each of these companies. And that means I can key in any company and I can find the identical lookalike to a company anywhere in the world, on any language represented or anything. Once you've built that, and once you have built the ability for people to use AI in their daily targeting, you're also aware that you have redefined the way you go to market. You have redefined the way people are efficient in targeting and everything else. And we think we have an opportunity to redefine the entire market. Whether it's enterprises like Sony is a customer of ours, or whether it's a small startup somewhere in the US or Europe or New Zealand for that matter, it doesn't really matter. It's all about the more precise you can target, the more efficient you can go to market. So the end goal is really to roll this out to the world. Yeah. So
Yeah,
ambitious, yes, but that's what we do.
exactly. And I love it that you don't put a number on it. You actually want
Yeah,
to redefine the market. So you want to
yeah,
build a good product and take it over.
yeah.
You mentioned you started in 2017. 2017, I from the beginning, which wasn't back then such a hype as right now. Like, how did you guys came up with the idea of basically implementing it from the ground up?
Yeah, that it came in two iterations. The first version of the system, the actual first version, was a very simplistic keyword embedded system that allowed us to pull certain keywords from companies and then allow us to compare companies based on keywords. That first version was what we can call a minimal MVP, but we also realized the limitations on the keywords. Orange is a fruit or a color. Okay. So we needed to get into more sophisticated stuff. And we had a very skilled data scientists in our team. And we started to explore the whole contextual vectoring aspect of that means, and this will sound familiar because this is what OpenAI did at the same time. We're looking at a contextual understanding of an entire text body. Okay, orange is the new black. The moment you hear that sentence, you understand orange is the color. Okay, because it's in a context of another color. And we started to explore that. And we realized that was the way forward. This is 2019. We were unfortunately on the bleeding edge of technology because we needed Elasticsearch and we needed version 7.2. We needed the ability to have a database that allowed us to store vectors. And that came out in, I think, late 19 or 20. And I'll tell you a funny story. We had a grant from the Innovation Fund in Denmark, and it was all fine, and we were happy, and we explained to them how advanced we were, and that grant was really would help us tremendously. But we couldn't release our product until from prototype on to release it until we had availability of that Elasticsearch 7.2. And that pushed our release date beyond the release date we have communicated to the Innovation Fund. Due to that, they pulled the grant. Okay, that's to give you the constraint a founder has. And we tried to convince them that it was outside influence. Our technology works. Doesn't help. Innovation Fund, here you go. We have to stick to the rules. That's just some of the today funny, but in those days it was not funny at all.
That's working with the government. Follow the rules.
Yeah, exactly. It's working with the government.
And I don't know if this is going to be your moment already, but like every founder has it. They hit rock bottom, either like financially where you didn't get the fund or maybe even personal. Like, what was a moment for you?
That was probably 2020, COVID, around New Year 2020. I got COVID. I had to go to a hospital. It was really bad. And the whole company was not doing well. And we were hit very hard by COVID, not just from a health perspective, but also from a business perspective. And that was probably rock bottom. We crawled out of that hole. It took me a couple of months personally to get back on my feet and really start to think again and my cognitive skills. I had a clouded brain for at least 2 months, but got back on my feet and yeah.
Now, how did you get out of it? Because it sounds now, I guess, simple, right? But it took 2 months to get your cognitive brain back, or at least like your
Yeah,
brain power back.
yeah.
How did you, like, any advice, for example, like how other founders could get out of a hole like that and pick themselves up?
This was circumstantially, obviously. Yeah, it's rely on good colleagues. I have our CTO, our head of products. We have been together right from the beginning, 2017 and 18, and we rely on each other. It's a teamwork, and I could rely on them to help pull us out.
Yeah. When we go to the more positive side, you guys started in 2017, at 2024, now 30 employees. Is there one thing which has been incremental to the success you guys are having now?
Yeah, I would say for quite some time, we are now at version 4 at the system. And for quite some time, we were too far ahead of everyone else. What we had was not really what people were looking for. And they were looking for telephone numbers and contact data. They were looking for all kinds of things that we did not have because we have spent so much resources in building this AI engine. It's not because we grew like rocket. It was very cumbersome growth because we had to find the needle in the haystack. That particular company that had that particular need that we actually solved. Then came two things. OpenAI released to the public their ChatGPT. And overnight, people realized what contextual understanding of text can mean and what AI in NLP models can actually do to you. Overnight, we started to get attention. And secondly, the whole downturn in the SaaS industry helped us tremendously because people were starting to focus on efficiency. They were not putting a army of SDRs throwing mud at the walls to see what stuck, and it really started to look at efficiency, and that's where we come, because this is all about efficiency. It's all about using AI to obtain an optimal target audience, and that helped us. And since then, we have really started to take off, and that's been beneficial for us. The moment we had was actually external forces starting to validate the technology we have spent blood, sweat, and tears to develop ahead of the curve. But on the other hand, we have a very fortunate situation. We're the
Yeah.
only game in town. We're the only one who can do this. And here's the funny story. When we started out with this, we created a term called lookalikes. When I founded this, my inspiration came from the B2C, came from the digital marketing where you cluster people into lookalike audiences. And I wanted to do that to B2B. With that mindset, I reused the lookalike audience from the B2C, but nobody realized that. Nobody resonated with that message. So we started to use similar companies or things like that. And then 2 years back, everyone was starting to talk about lookalike. And now, okay, Ocean became the one that actually defined lookalike in B2B. And sometimes you're lucky, okay?
Yeah, yeah. In the end, you sometimes might think that
Yeah,
OpenAI would be a competitor, but in your case, it actually did a really good thing because they
yeah,
educated the market on what you've
yeah.
already been building. Yeah,
We have a dedicated engine. OpenAI is a very general purpose engine, and it's great for what it does. But when you look at companies, there's specific elements of how a company describes itself and on where it describes itself that goes into actually uh, uh, representing what it does. And it takes a lot of machine learning to understand that. And OpenAI is not geared for that. That means if you run a lookalike in OpenAI, the first 3, 4, 5 results will be okay, but it doesn't scale. It doesn't scale down to the 500 and 800 or 10,000 companies that are actually lookalikes to that relatively. And so that's where OpenAI opened our eyes for everyone. But when it's all about scaling to an entire TAM, that's where we come in. We're the only game in town.
are you struggling to find a cost-effective and scalable marketing channel? Check out Redefinition. We help you to have other people recommend your SaaS, and you would only pay them when they deliver you paid clients, making it a very cost-effective and scalable marketing channel. Want to learn more? Go to getreditist.com. And let's talk about it before that time, because you guys already launched. You mentioned you were looking for a specific company with a particular need. Like a lot of companies, SaaS founders struggle with go-to-market. You had a really specific niche, as you mentioned, specific
Very
company,
niche.
particular need. What was your go-to-market strategy?
Is really targeting, since we could build a very focused using Ocean building a very focused ICP. It was very within IoT. IoTs are looking for very specific applications. Give you an example. One of our very good customers are building pretty much the inner of drones. Okay, they're building the inner of drones. That means Ocean, find me drone manufacturers. Okay, Ocean find me drone manufacturers for this particular application, which is internal mapping of inside mapping of whatever, and or outside mapping or specific drones. We can do that. We can give you the minute detail of an ICP. And so that was one area that we were very successful in. Then we had a German customer that built in architectural internal mapping of buildings. That means they were looking for applications that did that, and we could solve that problem. One of the more particular situation we have had was somebody selling spinal decompression. Spinal decompression is a very specific pain relief. They were targeting pain clinics in the US, and we could actually, and there's around 39,000 pain clinics in the US, and we can find all of them, but we will also find the 3,750 who actually do spinal decompression. That's how detailed we do this. And so it was those kind of niches in the beginning. Now is mainstream, but it's also PLG. So it's a whole different game now. Everyone is looking for lookalikes, and because they realize the more targeted you can create your audience, the more specific you can be in communicating with them.
Yeah. When we then talk about these companies, you found them different industries, different geos. How did you start getting those clients in?
Basically, from the day one, it was showing the product. We could, and we still to this day have not found a way to articulate what we do on our landing page to the degree where people say, okay, that's unique. They have to see it. They have to see it. That means it was a question of getting people in front of the platform once they keyed in one of their customers. And we showed them exactly anywhere in the world or anywhere in that country, the exact lookalikes to that customer. Then the penny dropped. You got the, whoa, I haven't seen that before. Okay. And so for our sake, it was getting them in front of the system as quickly as possible. And we have taken that the whole way now to PLG, that we self-onboard people into the platform. They can go ahead, and it's even on our landing page. Go ahead, to key in your customer. Here's the lookalikes to it, because it's that aha moment. And it's the same thing that happened when you used ChatGPT for the first time. Okay, it's the same thing. You got something, you got a result you didn't expect that it could be that accurate. And we have that ChatGPT moment each time a customer goes in front of Ocean.
Yeah, it makes sense. You really try to get them to that wow moment quickly.
Yeah. Try to describe ChatGPT on a landing page.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
very hard. It's very hard. Yeah.
If we go even one step further, because you mentioned like you try to get them on a demo, right? But then how would you even market yourself? Did you do cold outreach at the beginning, paid ads, organic?
Yeah, we did everything. We did LinkedIn ads and everything else. And the funny thing about LinkedIn ads is that with Ocean, you can bypass the entire industry segmentation in LinkedIn. And we used our own. That means we created our own target audience of IoT targets. And then we uploaded, because in LinkedIn, you can't target that precisely. It's a software company, or it's a IT company or whatever it is. And that's why they recommend that you run audiences of less minimum 50,000. Why? Because you're literally with it throwing mud at the wall. But we bypassed that and really, really used our own tool within LinkedIn. And the most curious thing is that LinkedIn called us and said, why is it that you have a significantly, and we're talking orders of magnitude, higher conversion rate than anyone we see out there? That's because we use ocean targeting.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's just, well, we use everything, cold calling, everything else. But in the end of the day, a couple of years ago, we all had to be efficient, and the CAC was too high. The CAC is simply too high in an outbound engine, and that's why we converted the whole thing to inbound, converted it to PLG, reduced our CAC to nothing, and in a very good space these days.
yeah. Yeah, so funny thing you mentioned it already before. You used your own tool to find the companies with a particular need or find companies here. You
Yeah,
used
exactly.
within LinkedIn.
Yeah,
You went outbound first, then PLG after, just to
yeah,
reduce your customers' acquisition cost.
exactly. And also get it out there in front of as many as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And this sounds really good, right? Let's talk about the other side again. Any big failures you made along the way, which you can share?
Yeah, we tried to scale too fast too soon. That cost us quite a bit of money. I would say that was one of the bigger mistakes. The consequence of that was that when you look at Ocean, it's really it's mind-boggling how it works and simple and everything else. But there's a lot of algorithms and all kinds of things behind it to make it look that is efficient. So we needed a very high cognitive skills from our sales to understand how to convey Ocean to a customer. And I think that was probably the biggest problem for us to, in a market where everyone could go into sales, to attract the best ones. Today, the story is very different. We probably have one of the best sales teams in the market. But in the early days, that was the tough part. That was really the tough part, getting someone who really understood uh, what we did into Ocean
Yeah.
and get the understanding of the math and everything else into it. Because unless you do that, you don't know how to articulate. It's
Mhm.
not because you're articulating math, but you're articulating the subtle understanding of how the algorithm works when you're starting to compare things.
When we look at really practical, you mentioned scaling too fast, too soon, hiring sales. Did it mean you already had one or two salespeople which really worked out, who had the knowledge, and then you hired people who just weren't able to pick it up as fast?
They couldn't pick it up. And some of them would never do it. And I would say, and that means we went through a lot of staff churn in sales, that's probably the unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
Lessons learned,
And when we,
painfully,
yeah, sometimes they are painful.
painful.
If we talk about a thing you didn't do, is there something you regret you didn't do when you now look back in your scaling?
We should have gone to US earlier. We should have gone US much earlier. There's two aspects to US. First of all, US is literally minimum 5 years ahead of Europe. And from our technology side and everything else, we are built as we would be in the US from the birth. And we were struggling around in Europe. And if we'd gone US earlier, much earlier, we would have generated traction much earlier because the target market was actually US. And we should potentially have gone, what I mean when I US, not just, but also operational and development wise, some of it in the US, and somehow split it up because we didn't have the ear to the ground in the US of what the customers were requiring. We were listening to European customers, and that was a big mistake.
Yeah.
That cost us at least a year.
And how did you now fix it? Do you guys have now two entities, one in Europe, one in
And
US?
one in the US, and 60% of our business, 80% of our business is out of the US.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we caught on to it, but we should have done it much earlier. If
So
I can
when we,
redo this, I would do the same thing, have Copenhagen, but I will do, we should have been in the US in 2020.
and how does it look
Yeah.
practical? Then would you also really live in the US, or would you just travel a lot?
No, we don't. Everything is PLG. Everything is, for me, is talking to customers, and I do that on Zoom. But it's also talking to the market, understand the market. So that require that I travel in the US, obviously. But it has that daily contact with the US market is really important for a company like ours.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. I always wanted to ask, like, how do you leverage technologies like AI, machine learning? But obviously, you do, right? So I'm not gonna ask you that question.
Are we born that way?
Yeah, but I am gonna phrase it a little bit different because you now have a lot of AI tools, right, which are built on top
Mm,
of OpenAI or any other kind of LM. But what if you build it yourself, right? You've been AI first. Like,
mm.
what is going to be the impact of that and the difference between all the AI tools you see right now?
When you build things from ground up, you make it very dedicated to the problem you want to solve. When you do that, you can achieve a depth in the AI that you cannot achieve by taking a legacy platform and just putting it ChatGPT on top of it. Let me give you an example. For customers, in general purpose, we are building the ability that when they close one customer, this is automatic within their CM system. This is what's happening within their CM system. They close one customer. Automatically, Ocean generates the lookalikes to that customer. That can be 250 companies. Peel the target people from those 250. Use ChatGPT to write a specific email to those 500 people or 800 people, because there's more than one in each company, relative to the company and context of the company they just closed, and automatically send those emails out saying, here is what we do for that particular kind of company. And this is happening automatically. That means the moment a new customer moves in to close one, this goes away. This is automatic. This is what AI can do based on a really focus. You cannot do that in ChatGPT alone. You need a platform like Ocean to automate that kind of process to the degree that we use ChatGPT for the text is because that's what ChatGPT is really good at. But the contextual understanding of the company, that's what we know.
Yeah.
You see the difference? Yeah.
You trained it specifically for something.
We trained it specifically for this. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. If we zoom out, is there any advice founder to founder you could give people listening right now? What should they do? Maybe avoid?
Listening to their own compass and trust their own compass. It's hard. It's a hard subject because I've had so many wanting us to change direction. I've had so many, including investors at Ocean, because we were struggling in the beginning, that had all kinds of advice for us. But in the end of the day, what makes the difference is your tenacity and the trust in what you believe in is right. That will make you successful. There's a reason you got the idea, and there's a reason that that idea is going to come out successful. It's not because you're not going to pivot, or it's not because or optimize, but it's because the core function that will make this successful is your sense of direction from your idea. Don't ever lose that.
Love it. And this is your first SaaS, right? We talked a little bit about mistakes already. So scaling too fast, too soon, hiring sales too quick. If you could do it all again from the start, are there any other things you would do differently?
No, not really. I would probably have done it in the US. Access to market, access to capital. We talked to some of the some of the tier one VCs in the US, and they really liked what we did. But had we been in the US, they would probably have invested. But we were sitting in Copenhagen, and we were so far ahead of everyone. Yeah. And but on the other hand, because building an AI engine that basically processes the amount of data we do costs a lot of money. It cost a fortune to build. And so I would say, yeah, we were 3 years ahead of the curve. And you can say that's 3 years wasted. But on the other hand, when the market actually hit us, we were at version 4 and the whole thing is taking off. Yeah, you can argue both ways.
Yeah. In the end, you came to version 4. You're now able to build a product-led growth.
Exactly.
Cool. We're going to dive into the 2 final questions. These are more practical for SaaS founders who are on a specific trajectory of their MRR. So what kind of advice would you give a SaaS founder who's just starting out and growing to 10K monthly recurring revenue?
Revenue is less important. The quality of the customer is much more important. The quality of the first 10 customers, and make sure you can learn from it and they can validate or change your original concept, is far more important than reaching 10. Because it's all about building that thing that can scale and that has the stickiness with the customer. And you need the first 10, 15, 20 customers to validate that. that you're not a nice to have, but you're a need to have. Revenue will come as a function of that. Once you are a need to have because you hit it and you got it validated by your first set of customers, revenue is a function of that.
Nice. So let's assume now we passed 10K monthly recurring revenue and we're going to make a huge step. I know we're going to go towards 10 million ARR. What kind of advice would you give SaaS founders here?
Automation. Use AI. Use AI to automation. I just gave you an example a couple of minutes ago about automation. Automate. There's so much magic in automation. If you throw people at it, we are only 30 people. From a revenue standpoint, we probably represent 90 or 100 people. Okay? But that is because we are so highly automated.
Yeah, and can you give some examples where normal startups maybe spend a lot of time where you have automated things?
We have not a single SDR. We have very few AEs. Our revenue is generated entirely inbound. We do not do outbound. Everything is automated in terms of we measure to the nth degree the customer journeys we have, and we optimize our product constantly. We have far more engineers than will ever have in sales. The product and optimizing the product and the journey for the customer is far more efficient for us than actually having 10 times the sales number in AEs we got. AEs can be extremely efficient if you channel quality to them.
Makes sense, yeah. The PLG motion is definitely in place. Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. If people want to get in contact with you, Michael, how can they do so?
LinkedIn, obviously. I'm a strong believer in network. I'm a strong believer in we can help each other. And I think I have at least 3 to 5 meetings a week with their founders or peers to exchange ideas and GTMs and all kinds of things. And I'm a strong believer in that.
Cool. Well, we're going to make a note of that. For people listening, leave us a review for the show so we can help other SaaS founders as well. We're going to add a poll to this show as well. So let us know what you thought about this episode. We're going to add his LinkedIn profile. So if you do need GTM advice, reach out to him or for anything else. Thank you for being on the show, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching this show of the Grow Your B2B SaaS podcast. You made it till the end, so I think we can assume you like this content. If you did, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you like this content, feel free to reach out if you want to sponsor the show. If you have a specific guest in mind, if you have a specific topic you want us to cover, reach out to me on LinkedIn. More than happy to take a look at it. If you want to know more about Redefinition, feel free to reach out as well. But for now, have a great day and good luck growing your B2B SaaS.